Think of a bird you've seen before that, for some reason, made you slightly uncomfortable. Maybe because of its color, its sound, the way it looks back at you, like it knows something you don't. For a lot of people, that bird is the crow, and I understand. Popular culture has done a very efficient job of turning one of the most fascinating animals on the planet into a symbol of bad omens. They show up in horror movie graveyards, perched on bare branches, cawing at the exact moment something terrible is about to happen. But let me tell you something. That reputation is one of the greatest injustices humanity has ever committed against a living creature. Because beneath that all-black coat, behind that piercing gaze and that silent light, lives a being that forms friendships lasting decades, that mourns its dead, that plays for the pure joy of it, that solves problems chimpanzees cannot, and this is the detail I want you to carry all the way to the end of this video, never forgets a face. Never. And what they do with that memory is what will completely change the way you look at them. Before we dive deep into the extraordinary mind of crows, if you're someone who loves understanding bird behavior and wants to see more content like this every week, consider subscribing and liking the video. Every subscription helps this message reach more people who, just like you, are willing to look at nature with a little more care and wonder. Let's start with the reason that moves me the most when I think about these birds. Most people believe crows are solitary, that they're cold, opportunistic animals. They show up to scavenge and disappear. That's the image that's stuck. But what science has observed over decades is radically different and deeply moving. Crows mate for life. That's not an exaggeration. Long-term studies conducted by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology showed that these birds establish monogamous partnerships that can last more than 20 years. They build nests together, defend territory together, raise their young together, and when one of them dies, the survivor can spend months in what researchers describe as active grieving, staying close to the body, vocalizing softly, refusing food. Think about that. A bird grieving. And it doesn't stop there. Just like in any long human relationship, there's complexity. There are crows that cheat. There are separations. There are territorial disputes involving entire families. Their social life is so structured and so emotionally charged that once you start studying it, it becomes hard to keep calling it instinctive behavior. Honestly, it starts to look a lot more like what we call life. The second reason to love crows is what happens inside their skulls, and I'll warn you now, it's going to surprise you. For a long time, animal intelligence was measured in a way that was quite convenient for us. How closely an animal resembles a human when solving problems. That's why primates always dominated those lists. But over the last 20 years, researchers at the University of Cambridge and the University of Vienna discovered something that shook neuroscience. Crows solve future-planning cognitive challenges at the same level, or above, chimpanzees. They use tools, not just picking up a stick and poking it into a hole, but selecting the right tool from several options, storing it to use later, and even fabricating new tools when the available ones don't work. A famous study documented New Caledonian crows bending wire into a hook shape to retrieve food from inside a tube. They were never taught. They figured it out. But what moves me most isn't the technical skill. It's the awareness of time. Crows plan for the future. They hide food in different locations, memorizing hundreds of cache sites. And, an extraordinary detail, when they notice they were watched while hiding food, they come back later and move it to a new location. They understand they were observed. They understand someone might steal. They take precautions. That's not instinct. That's theory of mind. The ability to imagine what someone else knows. A skill that, until very recently, we believed was exclusively human. The third reason is one of the most unsettling for anyone who still carries a bias against these birds, because it involves something we prefer to think of as exclusively ours: collective mourning. When a crow dies, the others gather. This isn't random behavior. Researchers at the University of Washington documented what became known as crow funerals, gatherings of dozens or even hundreds of birds around a dead companion. They go quiet, they observe, they vocalize softly, and then, together, they leave. Why do they do this? The most accepted hypothesis is that these rituals serve as learning opportunities, to understand what caused that death, to identify potential threats. But to anyone watching from outside, without the scientific context, the scene is undeniably moving. It looks like farewell. It looks like respect. It looks like grief. Just like us, crows also stop to honor their dead. The fourth reason is the lightest, and perhaps the most unexpected. Crows play, not to train hunting skills, not to practice survival behaviors. They play for pleasure. There is video footage of crows sliding down snowy slopes over and over again, using their wings and bodies like improvised slides. Of crows performing aerial somersaults for no functional reason whatsoever. Of juveniles that flat out refuse to stop playing even when the adults call them back. This capacity to play purely for delight is one of the strongest markers of emotional intelligence in any species. Animals that play without survival need are animals that experience something close to what we call joy. The next time you see a crow doing something that seems pointless, something that looks like it's just fun, know that's exactly what's happening. It's having fun, because it can. And now we reach the fifth reason, the one I promised at the very beginning. What they do with memory, with that ability to never forget a face. The University of Washington conducted a study that is now famous in the world of ornithology. Researchers wore masks while capturing crows for study. Specific masks with a distinct design. After releasing the birds, they continued appearing on campus with and without those masks. What happened next was extraordinary. The crows that had been captured, and only those crows, began recognizing the masks. They would dive toward researchers wearing them. They'd call out. They'd alert other crows. They taught their juveniles, who had never witnessed the capture, to fear those specific faces. The information passed through generations. But what the study also revealed was the other side of that memory. When researchers spent time simply being kind to the crows, leaving food, not disturbing them, just existing peacefully in their presence, something shifted. The birds began to reciprocate. They'd bring shiny objects. They'd sound alarms at the approach of predators. They'd stay nearby, almost like sentinels. Crows hold grudges, but they also hold gratitude, dramatic pause. And that changes everything, because it means the relationship between crows and humans isn't passive. It isn't one-sided. Every time you act with kindness near a crow, leave clean food out, don't shoo them away, simply respect their presence. You are building something, a reputation, a relationship, one that can be passed on to their offspring and to their offspring's offspring. You can be remembered as someone good by a bird for decades. In my years of watching birds, I've learned that the creatures we underestimate the most are, very often, the ones with the most to teach us. And crows teach about loyalty, about intelligence, about grief, about joy, about memory, and about the value of how we treat the beings around us, even the ones that fly. They are paying attention. They always have been. The question I want to leave with you today is this. Has there ever been a moment when a crow seemed to recognize you, follow you, or behave in a way that genuinely surprised you? Tell me in the comments. I read everything, and every story like that reminds me why it's so worth it to keep watching. Take care, and happy bird watching.